I think school broke us. I'm not talking about the future of education. I'm not talking about any of that stuff. I'm not talking about how kids today don't have the right kinds of schools. I'm not talking about government policy. I'm not here to talk about economics at all. But I think if we're going to fix our lives, we're going to need to understand how school actually broke us. I think school broke you and me. It has shaped us in unknown ways that we don't really even understand. And I think if you want to get to the root cause of so many issues of our lives, we're going to need to understand how school affected us. Now, I'm not here to talk about economics. I'm not here to talk about what kind of job you ended up in, what kind of career choices you made, what kind of higher education and post secondary education you ended up getting because of school. I'm not here to talk about any of that. I'm not here to talk about even if you had great teachers. I'm here to talk about the unknown or the hidden forces that ended up shaping your life because of going to school in general. I think this topic really matters to us right now because it isn't just about the future. We spend a lot of time talking about, well, here's what the future of education is supposed to look like. Here's how to change schools for our kids. Here are the kinds of options to give our kids. But I think if we want to fix ourselves, you and me, we're going to need to understand how the force of school ended up changing our lives. And if you ever felt lost in life, if you ever felt like you've fallen behind, if you ever felt that you're doing everything right, but you're still coming up short. My hypothesis is that school is the reason or a big contributing factor to you feeling that way. If you find yourself comparing yourself to others, if you find yourself having lost a sense of who you actually are, I think the roots of that begin at school. Unlearning all the things that we learned at school, these hidden lessons, I think is at the heart of how we can remake ourselves. I really care about this topic. I recently became a father, and as soon as I became a father, a whole host of people and a whole host of topics started coming up. I started getting ads served about these things as well. What kind of district am I living in? What kind of county am I living in? What kind of city am I living in? Am I going to be able to give the best education to my daughter? Set up a 529 plan, which is an education savings plan. All these decisions started coming up immediately after my kid was born. And I started to use this time to reflect and think deeply about, well, what kind of schooling do I actually want to give my daughter? And this in turn helped me introspect and realize some of the issues, a lot of the things that blocked me in life have been a direct result of going to school. And I've gone to great schools. I've had incredible teachers. I've gotten an advanced degree. I have a master's degree. All these sorts of things have come about in my life, and I've loved the kind of education I've gotten from school. And yet even I noticed that in many ways, my life is broken because of school. This is a multi-billion-dollar issue because the schools we go to end up impacting the work we end up doing. And the work we end up doing impacting society and our own happiness as a whole. And I think we're quite far away from doing the kinds of things that actually make us happy, that make society a great place to live. But it's not just about you and me. I think it's about society as a whole. A lot of the dysfunctions of society that we see today are rooted in the kinds of schools that we went to and the kind of education we receive at these schools. Now, of course, this seems like a no-brainer. Of course, schooling changes everything. The better school you go to, your life ends up being. But it's not about that. We know for a fact that after a certain point, money doesn't really increase the quality of your life. It doesn't really increase the happiness of your life. And so this is a question that I think impacts everyone. If you go to school, doesn't matter if you are in a higher economic bracket or maybe in the middle or somewhere in the lower brackets. I think the schools and the hidden lessons of school really impacting everything beyond just job choices. I think it impacts our happiness and the functioning of society as a whole. And I think about the future. What kind of house do you want to live in? Where do you want to live? People make these choices and end up spending hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars more, sometimes to be in just the right zip code, the right postal code, so that your kid can go to the better school. I think there's something quite broken and dysfunctional about the schooling system. But I think more fundamentally, there is an issue with school itself and the way it's set up. And that's what I want to explore today because it's impacted our identities in a profound way. If we want to fix ourselves, if we want to create the kind of future that we want for ourselves and for our kids, we're going to need to understand what happened to us. Much of what I'm going to be discussing over the next couple of episodes comes from people like John Taylor Gatto, who was the New York State Teacher of the Year multiple times. And for 30 years, he taught kids from the inner city all the way up to Upper West Side in Manhattan. We're going to go into the heart of what schooling does to you and me. On this channel, I talk a lot about creating the life we want, not about fixing problems, but about creating something new. And I think if we're going to create a better life, I think if we're going to create a better society, we're going to need to understand how to get out of this paradigm in the first place. So I hope you'll join me in this series as we uncover exactly what schooling did to us and how schooling broke us. So join me on this series as we talk about how schooling broke you and me and what we can do about it and how we can create a better self and a better world for our kids and for society.